Part 86. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 852. Little Haitang, are you okay? When Luo Chen saw that Chen Wantang was angry, he was a little at a loss and asked. Chen Wantang then cried a little, the kitten is seriously injured, senior brother, what should I do? Since his life, even when Chen Wantang suffered the death of her parents, she never suffered any injuries. After entering the sword sect, she was pampered by her master and coaxed by her senior brothers. Everyone in the sword sect doted on her, so how could anyone be willing to hurt her? She was injured at this time and felt pain all over her body. She was shaking. Although she had swallowed the pill, a large number of blood bubbles gushed out from the corners of her mouth and dripped down her chin when she spoke. Tears fell faster in her eyes. When Lily made her move, she still had a sense of discretion in dealing with these three people and left some leeway. She was not afraid of killing Chen Wantang. The main reason was that her strength had only reached the early stage of the golden core. Chen Wantang had always been the disciple of the master of the sword section. She was very favored, and killing her now would bring trouble to herself, so she just took action to teach Chen Wantang a lesson. Luo Chen's cultivation level was slightly higher, reaching the level of the beginning of the 7th level of the foundation building period, so she struck a little harder, and the other Su Ming was also hit by her, but she showed no mercy to the little kitten Chen Wantang spoke of. The kitten Chen Wantang mentioned was a white tiger with the blood of a mythical beast that Chen Wantang had made a blood contract with due to fate. The original owner in the plot died in the mouth of this white tiger. At this time, Chen Wantang could not be killed. Lily had no idea about that tiger. But she didn't like it. She first used her mental power to seal most of its mobility so that it couldn't escape into the spirit beast bag immediately. Then when she released the 5 thunder curse, she almost blocked most of its power. All used on white tiger. Monsters are inherently afraid of thunder disasters. The thunder attributed skills would do serious damage to them, and Lily was determined to give it a hard time, so if the 5 thunder curses were used this time, the white tiger might not have 30 or 50 years left. Don't even think about getting back to where you are now. After 30 or 50 years, it will have recovered from its injuries. 30 years later, when the good and evil factions compete in the century-old competition, it will be difficult for it to advance to the golden elixir stage, and naturally it will no longer be able to compete in the competition. Give some credit. Bring glory to Chen Wantang. Without such a helpful helper, this time Lily wanted to see how Chen Wantang could become a blockbuster in the competition no matter how lucky she was. I wonder who the girl is. I am the disciple of Sword Sect Master Lu Yishan. When Luo Chen heard Chen Wantang crying, his eyes showed distress. He first reached out to comfort Chen Wantang and patted Chen Wantang's arm. Then he frowned, raised his hand to wipe away the blood spit from his lips, and then endured the pain in his body. Trying to stand up. It's just that the thunder attribute technique just now was extremely overbearing. At this moment, the power of thunder and lightning still remained in his body, wandering around and destroying the vitality in his body. Lily came out too fast, and he had no time to meditate to remove the trace of thunder and lightning in his body. He couldn't force it out, so he could only endure the pain and stare at Lily with some vigilance. He didn't know when the sword sect had such a young female cultivator that he didn't know about. I don't know if he is an enemy or a friend. This place is in a remote location. It seems that few people come here on weekdays. If this person is an enemy and wants to kill several people, this person can kill 3 people with 1 blow from just now. If she retreats, I am afraid that if several people join forces, they will not be her enemy. Luo Chen wants to use the transmission talisman given to him by his master and ask for help from his master. But before that, he had to divert Lily's attention, lest she find out and intercept the rescue talisman she released. I know. You are the eldest brother of the sword sect, Luo Chen. Could it be that the eldest brother doesn't remember me? The eldest brother is such a noble man who forgets things so much. My little sister is what the eldest brother said, a dead wood that cannot be carved out of wood. Lily said this with a smile. As if he suddenly remembered something, he reached out and brushed his hair that was being blown around by the wind. He chuckled twice. Oh, I was wrong. The sex seniority rules are very strict. Now I should no longer call you senior brother, but should call you junior brother. After all, I think junior brother is only in the middle stage of foundation building now, and fortunately, we have reached the late stage of foundation building. Senior sister said this. Junior brother, do you have any objections? After Lily said this, she saw Luo Chen was stunned. His handsome face was green and white, and he stared at him as if he was petrified. He looked at her as if he couldn't believe it, his lips were wide open, shock flashed in his eyes, and he was speechless for a long time. I see that junior brother is full of truth, but I wonder if it is because the sect master is busy with mundane affairs and neglects to discipline you. He has not made any progress in his cultivation in the past decades. I remember that junior brother was a genius with 2 spiritual roots, but the sect master was proud of his beloved disciple. Why has cultivation progressed so slowly in 60 or 70 years? Lily frowned, not caring about Luo Chen's livid face, and then said, in my opinion, junior brother should concentrate on cultivation, meddle less in other people's affairs, and focus more on cultivation. It's really not possible to put more thought into seclusion and practice. The methods of swallowing pills from side sects like the junior brother said should also be used. As the proud disciple of the sect master, the junior brother has no shortage of resources. If he takes these side paths, now I'm afraid it's time to reach the later stage of foundation establishment, and we won't be stuck at the 7th level of foundation establishment now. After she finished speaking, she sneered twice. What is right or wrong? Master has no time to teach my disciples. As a senior sister, I have to give you a few words of advice. No matter what is right or wrong, if you can break through the foundation building stage, you must have a way. Don't talk about a bunch of great principles all day long. In the end, decades have passed, and junior brother is still just a useless person. It's really because of your spiritual roots. Luo Chen, with a cold look on his face, acted like a senior brother in front of Su Ming and the others, commenting on Lily's move to ask for Xiaogudan that day. Half a quarter of an hour ago, he was still a well-deserved leader in the section. The pride is very likely to enter the late stage of foundation building at the age of less than 100 years old. Even if there are sufficient resources, it is very safe to enter the early stage of Jindan at the age of 150, but in a short time, the girl he had just looked down upon suddenly appeared in front of him, and her cultivation level was 3 levels higher than his. Moreover, she said that Lily swallowed the elixir in a heretical way, but someone overheard her, and now she used what she had just said to block him. Luo Chen felt as if he had been slapped head-on. A slap in the face was even more embarrassing, especially when he remembered that he had said in front of Su Ming and Su Ming that Lily would at most reach the middle stage of foundation establishment before she died. But when she appeared now, she was less than 100 years old. She has reached the late stage of foundation building, and she only has the qualifications of the 5 spiritual roots. Logically speaking, she is far inferior to herself, but now her cultivation is above hers. When he heard Lily shouting junior brother, Luo Chen was filled with rage, but could not say a word at this time. His eyes showed a cold gaze, staring straight at Lily, his eyes full of murderous intent and resentment. Since he entered the sword sect when he was young, he has been worshipping the sect master all the way. He has outstanding talent, handsome appearance, and magical power. Because he has always been above all the junior brothers, he is a true senior brother in the sword section. He has lived an extremely prosperous life for decades. Luo Chen looks cold on the surface, but his personality is proud and complacent. Thinking about today's unintentional attempt to take Chen Wantang to search for the cave, he originally thought he had encountered a spiritual treasure land, but in the end he found a person whom he had not seen for many years and whom he thought was a waste. One moment he was still the eldest brother in the sect, and now he has become what the people he looked down on before called his junior brother. In front of Chen Wantang, this made Luo Chen particularly unbearable. He thought of Lele that day. When Beihe's parents died, he copied the sword sect's mental spells into jade slips and gave them to her. If he had known that one of his unintentional actions that day might have caused the humiliation he would be in today, he should not have helped her in any case. Even if he had known that Lily had such a mean and ruthless character, he should not have been so soft-hearted and taught her the skills that day, thus leaving such a disaster for himself today. What are you looking at? The sect leader of the sword sect has been a wise man in his life, but he never expected to raise a useless trash like his junior brother. As the disciple of the sect master, the junior brother will take over the responsibility of the sword sect's great foundation, and it is not Hehuan. The male disciple of the sect can only rely on his face to make a living. If the future master of the sword sect is only like this, I will sigh for my parents thinking of what he just heard Luo Chen say without shame about the day when Lefu, the first hero, raised a child. Seeing that Li Beihe was such a good-for-nothing daughter, Lily returned the word waste to Luo Chen without changing the words. Seeing that Luo Chen's fair face turned red, she raised her eyelids. He sneered. Aren't you going to leave? Do you want me to send you off in person? This cave is my treasured land for cultivation. If you want to change the cave, even if you are the sect leader, you should come up with the charter. Otherwise, you have to rely on your strength to get it. If you have nothing, you will be as high as the sky. Life is thinner than paper, get out. Several people were trembling with fear after being scolded by her. Su Ming was extremely seriously injured. When Lily came out, he didn't dare to take out the pill and swallow it, because he was afraid that Lily wanted to kill people and seize the treasure. Although her words were unpleasant when he saw her, he couldn't stand it. Every sentence was directed at Luo Chen, although her expression was impatient, but thinking about how many of them had been breaking into her cave, it was no wonder that she was in a bad mood. Immortal cultivators go against the grain, and most of them have very weird tempers. Su Ming had already guessed that he would end up like this, but he guessed the result, but not the process. He really didn't expect that at the beginning a registered disciple with 5 spiritual root qualifications, within a few decades without taking any resources from the sect, can cultivate to a point where he is even more powerful than Luo Chen by relying on his own efforts. At this time, Lily just let they rolled away, but it was not their lives. He was relieved in his heart. He endured the pain of his body's muscles and veins being damaged by the power of thunder and lightning, and tried to get up with difficulty. Senior sister, what are you doing? It's offensive. Disciple, brothers and sisters will leave immediately. Thank you, senior sister, for not blaming me. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 853. He also knows the current affairs. Although Su Ming among the 3 was also trying to please Chen Wantang, he spoke more pleasantly than Luo Chen. In addition, Lily had no enmity with him. Although Su Ming broke into his cave, when Lily cast the 5 thunder curse, the injuries sustained on his body were actually the lightest. She patted the kinkan bag, and a jade bottle flew out. Lily held it in her palm. The bottle contained an ordinary elixir that could replenish mana during the foundation building stage. These elixirs were of a type that Zifeng no longer liked. But so far, Lily has achieved some success in refining elixirs. Once the elixir was refined by her, even if it was not the best elixir with silver patterns, the effect was much better than the ordinary elixirs outside. She turned the jade bottle towards Su Ming, threw it over, and Su Ming reached out to take it. Lily snorted and turned around and entered the cave. This time, after someone broke into the cave without permission, Lily felt a little wary. She went out of the cave in the next few days and took the ordinary elixirs she had collected over the years to Shangxiafang City. It was replaced with some magic weapons such as array flags and so on. Although her strength has increased over the years, she does not have any magic weapons or restrictions to guard the cave at hand. In these decades of uninterrupted refining time, except for some top quality in addition to the elixir, there are also many other ordinary elixirs. It takes a lot of time just to collect the medicinal materials. This time, Lily simply exchanged these elixirs for some things that she currently needs, and exchanged all the remaining elixirs. After gathering a large number of medicinal materials suitable for replenishing spiritual power in the golden core stage, as well as the most common God concentrating pill recipe for replenishing spiritual power during the golden core stage, he returned to his cave. She hurt Luo Chen last time and deliberately insulted him. Lily was not afraid that the master of the sword sect would come looking for her. Secretly, the two masters and disciples will definitely hate themselves to the core, but on the surface, the leader of the sword sect will definitely not blatantly cause trouble for her. After all, Li Bei's parents sacrificed for the sect that day. In the past, it was fine for the leader to neglect an orphan girl. If you deliberately create trouble for an orphan girl, who else in the sect will dare to serve the sect again? The most important thing is that although Lily doesn't want to cause trouble, she is not afraid of it. Although she is only at the early stage of the golden core cultivation, and the strength of the sect master has reached the nascent soul stage, she still has a group of purple bees with the strength of the golden core stage. If the real sword sect cannot tolerate her, if there is a fight, even if it is a fight. But the sect master, at least if she wants to leave, the people of the sword sect may not really be able to keep her. Back in the cave, Lily will place a ban. In the following time, in addition to refining elixirs to feed the bees, she also began to go out to search for medicinal materials that could promote the evolution and reproduction of purple bees. After she collected a large number of medicinal materials around Jianzhong in 2 years, Lily simply left the sect and spent 2 spirit stones to buy an ordinary map of Zhongxinglan Sea area. He discovered that there was a dangerous demon spirit valley in the mainland. This demon spirit valley was discovered about 5,000 years ago. There are many caves of ancient monks left inside, but they have been searched almost everywhere in thousands of years. The magic weapons, spiritual weapons, and elixirs have been found by the real senior masters, but there are a lot of medicinal materials inside. The precious things must have been collected, but Lily needs several hard-to-find medicinal materials that can make the goo bugs go crazy. There are records in the map, but the high-ranking monks there don't want to waste time anymore, and the low-level monks want to go in, but I don't dare. It's full of large and small monsters and dangers. Except for some major cultivators who need demon pills, they will go there. There are usually very few people in the Demon Spirit Valley. When Lily discovered that this place was quiet and there were many medicinal materials, she immediately decided to go to this place. Although there are certain dangers inside, it is convenient to collect medicinal materials there. Moreover, fighting monsters can also train her strength, and she doesn't have many things. Except for a small amount of foundation building elixirs that she later refined because they could not fit in her kinkan bag and were not taken away, she had already carried almost all the medicinal materials that she could use and sealed them in her cave. After getting up, Lily got on a flying magic weapon that she had replaced a few years ago and flew towards the Demon Spirit Valley. She stopped in the Demon Spirit Valley. She first found a mountain range and released a large swarm of purple bees to clear out a territory around it. Then she picked up a simple magic weapon and split a cave in the middle of the mountain, creating a when entering the practice room and the alchemy room. Lily flew in a flash, buried the formation flag at the entrance of the cave, and directed the purple bees to stay in the mountain wall. Lily then settled down in this place. In addition to practicing alchemy and beekeeping on weekdays, Lily spent the rest of her time killing monsters of all sizes around her. In the Demon Spirit Valley, the monsters ranged from those in the foundation building stage to those in the late golden elixir stage. She even felt the coercion of the aura monsters in the nascent soul stage a few times and narrowly escaped. At first, Lily still needed the help of Zigby to kill the monsters. Later, her strength skyrocketed and she became a middle-stage golden elixir. She can almost deal with the monsters on her own. In the past 25 years, Lily's strength has risen from the early stage of the golden elixir to the late stage of the golden elixir. During this period, Lily also collected hundreds of large and small demon elixirs. She also included these demon elixirs when she made elixirs on weekdays. Throwing it into the alchemy furnace, the effect of the God-gathering pill will naturally be better. There are many medicinal materials in the Demon Spirit Valley that encourage purple bees to multiply and devour. After the preparation is prepared, these purple bees will be fed. The daily elixir feeding plus the medicine ripening, coupled with the spiritual power of heaven and earth attracted by Lily's daily practice, and several effects, the purple bees have evolved twice again in the past 25 years. After devouring each other, the purple bee swarm has grown from the initial 40 to there were many, and later the number more than doubled, and their strength had already reached the late golden core stage. After staying in the Devil's Valley for more than a year, Lily's strength had already stopped at the late stage of Jindan for a long time. Before that, it was just because Zigby had been sleeping and didn't wake up, so she suppressed her cultivation. Dare to break through the nascent soul stage. It was not until a swarm of purple bees woke up again half a month ago that Lily began to prepare to break through the nascent soul stage. A large group of purple bees were released. Now each of these purple and gold king bees has a body about the size of a pigeon egg. Gold patterns have begun to appear on the surface of the body. Each one carries the spiritual pressure of the late stage of the golden elixir. When Lily makes a move, one of the spiritual bees, which was about the size of a baby's fist, flapped its wings and flew towards her. This purple bee was the largest one in the swarm that woke up half a month ago, and it was also the most powerful one, faintly having reached the stage of half-step nascent soul. The lower half of the purple wasp's belly began to form circles of golden patterns. The body seemed soft, but in fact, Lily hit it with a 5 thunder spell, leaving only the surface. With a light layer of gray-black scorch mark, the bee rested docilely in her palm, and the body surface quickly returned to its previous appearance under the rotation of spiritual power. This purple bee had a pair of round eyes, and its ferocious appearance was very scary. At this moment, the golden translucent wings were retracted by it. When Lily thought about it and tried to communicate with it, she found that the purple bee's mental power far exceeds that of the other purple bees. I don't know if it's because her mental power is now extremely high. Even if she controls so many swarms, she doesn't feel that it's very difficult. After discovering the specialness of this purple bee, Lily guessed that if this purple bee could control it again as they continue to evolve, once they reach the nascent soul stage, they may become the real purple gold queen bee mentioned in the secret record of mastering the spirit. Once the queen bee grows up, her body will be more than half as big as it is now, and her body skin is so hard that ordinary magic weapons will not be able to damage her. Even against monks of the same level, the queen bee's venom can easily kill the enemy instantly. Thinking of this, Lily couldn't help but feel a little excited in her heart. She stretched out her hand and threw the purple bee out. When the purple bee flew out, the other purple bees in the late golden elixir stage quickly made way for a passage, which further confirmed Lily's guess. It could be true. She decided that if she could advance to the nascent soul stage, she would first try her best to help this purple bee reach the nascent soul stage. If successful, she would have an assistant of the same level. Now that the century-old war between good and evil is about to begin, multiple assists will come. It can also be regarded as a life-saving skill. He ordered these swarms to stay by his side to protect him. Now Lily in the Demon Spirit Valley and these nearly 100 swarms have become the absolute overlord in the surrounding area. A purple bee in the late golden elixir stage is not scary, but a group of late golden elixir swarms are not scary. When purple bees are mixed together, the lethality increases exponentially. Lily was previously afraid that when she dispersed pills and gathered babies, she would attract the attention of some nascent soul stage monsters in the valley. The blood essence of monks is of great benefit to monsters. The attraction of monsters is equivalent to the effect of the blood and fur inner elixir of monsters on humans. Similarly, once a monk with a higher level is swallowed by a monster with skin and bones, the benefits will also increase exponentially. This is one of the reasons why he has been suppressing his magic power and dare not ascend to nascent soul. After practicing to this point, the quality of aptitude is secondary. In addition to destiny, the real influence on promotion is the strength of one's Taoist heart and the strength of the magic power as well as the fate. Lily shattered the inner strength of the body. Golden elixir, a stream of spiritual power quickly dispersed from her body. Once her dantian broke, a lavender nascent soul with the same face as hers began to emerge above her head. Such a move would require a lot of heaven and earth. It can only be carried out with the support of spiritual power. If the magic power is insufficient, if the breakthrough to the nascent soul fails, not only will the cultivation level drop to a lower level, but also a thunderstorm is likely to be summoned. In the past few years, Lily has kept many top-quality elixirs in her hands. Now she stuffed them into her mouth without hesitation. A large amount of spiritual energy poured into her body. The appearance of the nascent soul became more and more solid. Smelling this after a burst of spiritual energy, many monsters from all directions began to come upon hearing the news. A group of purple bees stood by her side. The fist-sized purple bee at the head seemed to be the leader, watching the movements around her vigilantly. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 854. In half a month, Lily repeated the action of condensing the body of the nascent soul, and some of the stored elixirs had long been used up. Fortunately, she was still cooperating with the physical training skills to attract the surrounding spiritual energy, and Lily was still maintaining it. In order to prevent the nascent soul's spiritual energy from spreading, she has tried this dual-purpose training method many times and has already become familiar with it. When others think that the most difficult level of inner demons is, Lily just gets through it easily. She is in such a state that the so-called inner demons are not a problem to her at all. Lily's willpower is extremely strong. In the past missions, no matter how many temptations there were in the plot, they could not tempt her. Now she has a small inner demon. Who is her opponent? When the nascent soul was formed, thunderstorms formed in the sky. Lily herself learned the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching focuses on the cultivation of righteousness. In addition, her resistance to thunder and lightning was already great, and she could withstand it for 9 times. There was a thunder tribulation, and the thunder tribulation dissipated, and the whole mountain was almost emptied. The nearly 100 purple bees that were originally guarding her were almost all looking desolate and abnormal at this time. Although most of the power of the thunder tribulation was carried away by Lily, these purple bees were only in the late stage of Jindan after all. Facing the thunder, I was still injured to some extent during the calamity. Fortunately, these purple bees looked very powerful. After being knocked to the ground, they struggled to fly again for a long time. When the thunder calamity dissipated, the sky was filled with monks who had condensed nascent soul and above and successfully overcome the calamity. At the 9 heavens spiritual spring, which was unique after the tribulation cloud, the depleted spiritual power in Lily's body began to be quickly replenished. Her body, which was originally slightly injured, was slowly repaired under the nourishment of the spiritual spring. The largest purple bee among them began to have layers of purple-gold halo on its body surface. It also suffered from this thunder tribulation. After receiving some benefits, Lily Sandan became an infant. It also absorbed a part of the spiritual energy. Now, Coupled with being sprinkled by the spiritual spring, this purple bee had already reached the stage of great perfection in the later stage of the golden elixir. At this time, Lily had just formed the nascent soul. It also started to become violent. The calamity clouds that had just dispersed began to gather quickly again. When Lily saw this scene, she couldn't help but cursed in her heart. The spiritual power in her body had not yet been fully replenished. At this moment, the purple gold king bee seems to have a tendency to advance to the nascent soul. Compared with humans, the advancement process of monster beasts will be much simpler. There is no process of dispersing pills and becoming a baby, but the cultivation process of monster beasts is far more difficult than that of humans. But once the practice is successful and the magic power is sufficient, it reaches the point where it can advance to the nascent soul. As long as you survive the 9 tribulation thunders, you can transform into a nascent soul. The purple bee was currently under the calamity cloud. Its big, bright eyes stared at Lily pitifully. Its pleading message came from the spirit in her mind. Lily had to endure the pain all over her body and tried to attract the spiritual energy. Body, preparing to carry the purple bee down for the next calamity. The purple bee passed through the first few tribulations smoothly. Every time it withstood a calamity thunder, its body swelled. However, with the 4th calamity thunder, its aura began to look a little sluggish. Everywhere on its body was cracked by lightning, and pale golden blood came out. Lily was cruel, bit her middle finger, and sprinkled a few drops of blood on it, and the bee opened her mouth and swallowed it. Some spiritual energy has been restored. The thunderstorm lasted for 2 days and 1 night, and the last wave of thunder lilies carried it through. This purple bee had completely advanced to the level of a king bee, and it exuded the terrifying strength of the nascent soul stage monster. When the pair of golden wings were spread out, they had reached the size of a palm from the width of 2 fingers together, and tiny scales sprouted from the abdomen of this purple gold king bee. These scales are unusually tiny and number in hundreds, tightly covering its lower abdomen. This is the real purple gold king bee recorded in the secret records of taming beasts. Because Xifeng and herself accidentally entered the nascent soul stage at the same time, Lily stayed in the belly of the mountain for another 2 months. After replenishing the spiritual power in her body, she started to rush back towards the sword sect. Among the original owner's wishes, she still owed Luo Chen a word of thanks that she had never said out loud. Although Lily didn't have a good impression of Luo Chen at all, after all, this was the original owner's only wish, and she would still fulfill it for him. When she was on her way after reaching the nascent soul stage, her speed was much faster. When she appeared in the sect with her aura hidden for about half a year, no one in the sword sect noticed her return at all. The sword sect is still the same as when she left it more than 20 years ago. When Lily drove the flying magic weapon to her cave, someone from the law enforcement team wanted to come forward to intercept her, but Lily ignored it. She flew directly over these people and saw her own cave in the distance. Before she landed, a melodious sound of Guhan suddenly sounded in front of the previously deserted cave door. "Senior brother, how do you play this piece of music by Tang Er?" A familiar female voice rang in Lily's ears. She was still in the sky and saw that the cave below, which was originally overgrown with grass, seemed to have changed. The surrounding weeds had been cleared away, and there were still faint traces of the cave. He had some spiritual energy, but the spiritual energy was not strong. This should be the reason why Lily often practiced elixirs and physical training here in the past. This area, which originally had no spiritual veins, was gradually nourished with some spiritual power, but although the spiritual energy is not strong, the place has been transformed. A large number of fairy flowers and spiritual grass have been planted around it, making it look like you are in a fairyland. These flowers and plants are placed in the form of the 5 elements and Bagua, which gathers the surrounding spiritual energy to form a fairyland. With a small spiritual vein, the environment is much better than when Lily was there. There was a white jade table in front of the cave. A girl in a pure white dress who looked like an otherworldly girl was looking up and smiling at a man sitting next to her. The man had his long hair pulled up. The white robe was dragging on the ground, with an otherworldly look. When he heard the girl's voice, the man's cold face showed a faint smile. Yes. Xiao Haitang's piano skills are getting better and better, but now the war between the two parties is about to begin. I heard that Master Nyan of Laiyan Temple and old Mo Wei had an agreement earlier. I am afraid that the battle in 2 years will be civilized first and then martial. Lei the Yin Temple will select outstanding people to challenge. If you succeed in the battle, you will become famous all over the world. You still have to focus more on your practice. Although you have outstanding talents and have now reached the stage of building the foundation of Dzogchen, because of your small the cat was injured 20 years ago, but now it has not yet formed an elixir according to its mythical animal lineage. You are still missing a helper, so you should be more careful. The same situation as in the plot is that Luo Chen has entered the golden elixir. In the early days, he entered the golden elixir stage at the age of only 100 years old, which is considered a rare genius in the world of immortality. Compared with more than 20 years ago, the look of desolation between his eyebrows was thicker. With a confident look on his face, Chen Wantang pouted when he heard what he said and was about to speak, but Luo Chen stood up warily. Who is it? Come out. Don't blame Luo for being ruthless if he doesn't show up. Who allowed you to come here? Lily saw Luo Chen and the two appearing in front of her cave, and saw the transformed environment here. She didn't know that in the more than 20 years since she went out, the cave must have been destroyed by Chen Wantang. After being taken over, the scene here was exactly the same as what she said outside her cave that day. There were flowers, grass, mountains and water, and she could play the piano for entertainment, and her life was as carefree as a fairy. When Lily commanded the magic weapon to fall from the sky, Luo Chen immediately crushed the communication talisman in his hand, summoned the magic weapon that he had kept with him, and stared at the sky warily. When he saw Lily when he appeared, he gritted his teeth, with a gloomy look in his eyes, and snorted coldly. Lily. This time he could no longer remember who Lily was. Lily had humiliated him in this place. Luo Chen felt deeply ashamed after returning. He spent the next time practicing in seclusion and finally broke through the foundation building 6 years ago. In the later stage, he reached the golden elixir stage in one fell swoop. Although he only let out the bad breath in his heart after reaching the golden elixir, he also suspected that Lily, who was in the later stage of foundation establishment, might also enter the golden elixir stage with him, but within the sect, as early as 25 years ago, he discovered that Lily was missing. He guessed that Lily had poor qualifications and went out to look for opportunities to ascend the golden elixir. He thought that with Lily's qualifications, it was unlikely that he would break through the golden elixir stage in his life. There is no guarantee that he will meet her again, but the bad breath he received back then is still vivid in Luo Chen's mind when he thinks about it. It can be said that the enemy was extremely jealous when they met. Thinking of the scene that day when the first disciple of the majestic sword sect master and the senior brother in the sword sect was forced to call his junior brother by a useless person with 5 spiritual roots, Luo Chen at this moment, I just feel like a breath of air that was originally stuck in my chest has suddenly been lifted up. Now that he is in the golden core stage, he must have qualified according to Bai Qi. With his hard work and the support from the sect, it took more than 20 years to enter the golden elixir stage. This speed has to be said to be extremely fast. Even the master praised his cultivation speed as unprecedented in the sword section. He did not believe that with Lily a helpless monk could surpass himself in such a short period of time. If she was still in the foundation building stage, then she could finally repay the humiliation she suffered that day. Although Luo Chen couldn't clearly see Lily's strength at this time, he always felt that Lily must have used some method to hide her cultivation, pretending to be profound. He sneered twice, watched Lily fall to the ground, and waved his sleeves to put the low-quality flying magic weapon into his cuffs. Compared with 30 years ago, Lily had not changed much. She was still the same. Wearing an ordinary white robe, her hair was tied up with a ribbon, and a lowly kinkin bag and a spirit beast bag were hung around her waist. Her whole body was as shabby as before. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 855. Looking at this look, it doesn't look like she has returned home in fine clothes, but rather like she has returned in poverty, otherwise she would not be able to afford a storage ring, and still use the kinkin bag of a low-level disciple. Luo Chen has a cold personality, but now it seems when Lily saw this scene, she wished she could look up to the sky and burst into laughter. Junior sister Ellie, I haven't seen you for many years. You have been away from the sect for a long time and have never returned. The resources of the sect's cave have always been tight. Junior sister Xiao Haitang has reached the stage of great perfection in the later stage of foundation building. According to the rules, the sect's internal members speak according to their strength. If you are not here, this cave will be allocated to her by the master. Luo Chen rarely said such a long series of words when facing the original owner. At this time, after he finished speaking, there was a bit of sarcasm in his eyes. Colorful, and rare, he actually smiled at Lily. Oh, no, I shouldn't call you junior sister Le now. I advanced to the Golden Core stage 6 years ago and am now one of the peak protecting elders in the sword section according to the sect's rules. I should now call you master. My nephew. I wonder if my nephew has any objections to what I said. Although Luo Chen has a cold temperament, he has always kept in mind the humiliation he suffered from Lily that day. After so many years, he dare not forget it. Now he always feels that he is proud, and he also shows a bit of arrogance and complacency in front of Lily. Lily's feet slowly landed on the ground. She glanced at the surrounding scene and ignored Luo Chen. When Luo Chen saw her like this, a look of embarrassment and anger flashed in his eyes. Trespassing into other people's caves without permission is a taboo in the section. You have been away from the sect for many years and have not returned. Do you still have this sect in your eyes? Follow me to see the master later. When Lily heard him speak, a somewhat sarcastic look appeared in her eyes, and she sneered twice in her heart. At this moment, Luo Chen was like an ant in front of her, and she could easily kill him. When these people broke into the cave, Lily at that time had already reached the early stage of Jindan cultivation. But at that time, Lily knew how to shoot the first bird, so even if she slapped Luo Chen in the face at that time, she did not reveal her true strength in the golden elixir stage. Instead, she only said that she was in the late stage of foundation building. Now she has reached the nascent soul stage. Luo Chen probably didn't know that she had already entered the golden elixir a long time ago. He only thought that she was still a disciple in the late stage of foundation establishment. At this time, he began to place his uncle's profile in front of him. When Lily saw his cold attitude, couldn't help laughing twice, and said meaningfully, "The sect master really wants to see me, but I am not necessarily the one who breaks into other people's caves without permission. I remember that this cave has always been mine from the beginning to the end. Even if the sect needs me to relocate, it should still find it for me. There is another cave, but I would like to ask the sect master where he has arranged me now. A capable person lives here. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. You have been away from the clan for many years. You have no respect for your elders. When you meet the master, he will have something to say." Seeing that Lily was still so calm at this time, Luo Chen felt vaguely uneasy in his heart. Lily in front of him could not see his cultivation. It was exactly the same as when he was driven away by Lily in front of this cave more than 20 years ago. The revenge he wanted did not achieve the pleasure he imagined. Which made Luo Chen's expression show a bit of irritation. He had already cast the transmission talisman before Lily landed. Decades ago, he was struck by Lily's 5 thunder curse. He developed the habit of carrying transmission notes with him. After Luo Chen finished speaking, People from the sword sect rushed over quickly, saying that the sect leader had learned that Elder Li's daughter had returned and asked her to go to the main hall of the sword sect's main peak with Luo Chen and others. He has something to say. Lily noticed that the monk who sent the message called herself the daughter of the former Elder Li of the sword section. She was not his disciple. Although Lily was not interested in being the disciple of this so-called sect leader, the sect leader's eagerness to drive her out made Lily's eyes flash with a cold look. When he heard the sect leader calling, Luo Chen snorted coldly, took out his flying magic weapon, the Jasper boat, put his arm around Chen Wantang's waist, picked her up, and walked towards the magic weapon without turning around. Mana was poured into it, turned into a green light, and escaped quickly. When it was Lily's turn, Lily took out the ordinary flying magic weapon that she had exchanged in the market during her golden elixir period, and jumped on it. When the monk who sent the order saw this scene, a look of contempt flashed in his eyes, but he saw Lily jumped up. Although the magic weapon was low, her magic power was pure. As soon as the magic power of the nascent soul stage monks was poured into it, the ordinary boat disappeared with a whoosh, even faster than Luo Chen's jade boat before. After a few minutes, the monk was startled and quickly turned around and followed. When they arrived at the main hall of the sword sect, the mist-shrouded hall was already filled with elders from various sects of the immortal style. When Lily jumped off the flying boat, several people in the hall were holding spiritual tea and talking. The master, who has been rarely seen since his parents passed away, is wearing a green robe and sitting in the main hall of the main hall, looking calm and authoritative. The master of the sword sect is already over 900 years old. His strength is in the early stage of nascent soul. If there is no possibility for him to make further progress within 100 years, he may die. The master of the sword sect may know this, and also knowing that there is no hope of advancing to the middle stage of nascent soul in this life, he has concentrated on taking care of the secular affairs within the sword sect in these years, and has a high reputation among the sword sect. He looked like a middle-aged man in his 30s. He was tall and had a gentle expression. He occasionally showed a bit of shrewdness and calmness when he spoke. When he heard the movement outside, he stopped what he was about to do to drink tea and raised his head. When he raised his head and saw Lily put away the flying magic weapon and entered the main hall, the sword sect leader was stunned for a moment, a hint of displeasure flashed across his eyes quickly, and then the corners of his mouth curled up again. After Lily entered the palace, Luo Chen and Chen Wantang were about to arrive outside. When Luo Chen found out that Lily had left a step later than him but arrived first, a look of doubt and anger appeared on his cold handsome face. He strode into the palace and bowed when he saw the sect leader. Disciple Luo Chen, I have met Master. Master, Li Beihe. Lu Yushan is not comparable to Luo Chen more than 20 years ago. In fact, he no longer recognizes Lily, the registered disciple he took under his section in the past 100 years. He has not been able to recognize Lily at all. He has never met Beihe, and he has never given her any tips on exercises. However, compared to Luo Chen, Lu Yushan is much more cunning and cunning. He did not recognize the person, but he showed no signs of it on the surface. In addition, he had just learned about Lily's return to the sect and sent a disciple to summon her. Naturally, there was no other female disciple except Lily who could appear outside the hall at this time. No need to say more, I know it well, Master. Lu Yushan saw the anger in Luo Chen's eyes, but he interrupted his disciple's words. Luo Chen is the most proud disciple of his life, and the most important person in the world of cultivating immortals is inheritance. The relationship between master and disciple is far more reliable and close than that between father and son. He has put a lot of effort into raising this disciple. Lu Yushan also knows in his heart what Luo Chen's character is like. For those who dared to offend him more than 20 years ago, Lu Yushan is also very unhappy, but no matter how much he dislikes it in his heart, Lu Yushan doesn't show it at all on the surface. He is going to try his best to find a pill that can increase his lifespan in these 100 years. If he can live for hundreds more years over time, he will find a way to forcibly raise the strength of his only disciple to the nascent soul stage, and then pass the position of sect leader into his hands. From now on, Luo Chen is going to be the leader of the sect and does important things, so he needs to keep his emotions and anger hidden, not to mention that he doesn't know some things yet, so he has to tell him slowly. Even if he doesn't like Lily, if he wants to replace her, there are many ways for him to vent his anger, and there is no need to do it in front of the elders right now, making people think that Luo Chen's behavior is too impulsive and cannot be used. Li Beihe, Lu Yixin looked at Lily up and down. Based on his cultivation level, he vaguely felt that Lily was not just at the foundation building stage as Luo Chen said that day. Lily was practicing the Tao Te Ching. For this reason, once the spiritual energy is restrained at this time, the aura of the nascent soul stage is hidden. Although Lu Yixin advanced to the nascent soul earlier than her, Lu Yixin's magic power is not as pure as hers. In addition, Lu Yixin is not a nascent soul. She was one level higher than her in the midterm, so she couldn't see where her specific cultivation level was. However, Lu Yixin instinctively felt that something was wrong. A look of doubt flashed in his eyes. Just when he was about to test it out, Lily, before he could open his mouth, he asked directly. In order to break through the golden elixir stage more than 20 years ago, the disciple went out to look for opportunities, so that he returned to the sect at this time, only to find that the cave where the disciple lived has been occupied by others. I wonder what is going on. The sect has its own arrangements for this matter. Lu Yixin, as the master of the sword sect, has been respected by others since he entered the nascent soul stage. Now he is just an ordinary disciple under his own name. He was so rubbish at the beginning. He didn't even want to take a look at this useless person with the 5 spiritual root qualifications. At this time, he just didn't kowtow or worship him after entering the palace. There wasn't even the slightest look of respect in his face and eyes. When he entered the palace, he didn't say anything to his former self. The master said hello, but as soon as he came, he began to question the ownership of his cave, and his demeanor and tone made Lu Yixin feel unhappy. At this moment, Lily's questions dispelled his doubts about Lily's strength. There was an unhappy look in his eyes, and the smile at the corner of his mouth dropped. Lu Yixin's words made Luo Chen and Chen Wantang look happy, but Lily stretched out her hand to flick her sleeves and asked, "What's the arrangement?" She didn't know how to advance or retreat. If ordinary disciples heard this from the sect leader, they would naturally not ask any more questions. However, she did not know how to continue asking. Lu Yixin's face turned completely gloomy. The elders sitting around him at this time, Guangu became like a bodhisattva, holding the teacup with a smile on his face and saying nothing, as if he had not seen the scene in the temple. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 856. What arrangement? Logically speaking, you are my registered disciple. There is a spiritual vein in that cave, and you have been living here for many years. It is already a privilege. Your talent is too low. If there are good resources in the sect, the talent will always be given priority. Good disciples use it. You have been practicing for 100 years, but I wonder where your cultivation is now. Did you know that you, junior sister Chen, have reached the late stage of foundation building at the age of less than 100 years old, and may even break through the golden elixir at any time? What is the true power of the sect? There are only so many caves in Lingmei, and there are too many monks and too few monks. You are also the daughter of the former Elder Li. Elder Li was also trained by the section. The sect is kind to him. As his only daughter, shouldn't you go there for the sake of your master? How much will you give in to the future development? Lu Yixin showed a serious look on his face and began to yell. After he said this, Chen Wantang couldn't help but eat when she heard that he was praising herself. She started laughing, and her innocent look caused everyone else in the sect to laugh too. Chen Wantang became more and more proud, making faces one by one, and the laughter around her became even louder. Lily turned her head and glanced at these people with a calm expression. So I am a sojourner in my own cave? That cave didn't have spiritual veins at the beginning. The sect leader must also know that no one came to snatch it before. Now that there is a spiritual vein, the sect will take over it while I'm not around. Since the sect leader said that my father she made great contributions to the sect in the past, so could it be that this is how the sect leader treated the daughter of the former elder? She spoke in a leisurely voice, but her tone and demeanor made Lu Yishan start to feel impatient. His eyes turned cold. The world of immortality has been inhabited by capable people since ancient times. Now. Okay, when Lily heard Lu Yishan open his mouth and speak exactly like Luo Chen just now, she interrupted him, I don't want to hear these words either. Since the sect wants to steal my spiritual veins, I am weak and weak. Forget it, where is the sect going to place me now? Before she could finish her words, Lily interrupted her unfinished words in such a disrespectful manner. Lu Yishan was the master of the sword section in the hundreds of years he has been in charge of the sword sect's affairs. He has never encountered anyone who dared to be disrespectful to him. Even in the past, when Li Bei's parents were still alive, they would give him a bit of disrespect as the sect leader. Now that an ignorant junior dared to speak to him like this, Lu Yishan was filled with anger and evil, and a murderous intention surged out of his heart. He finally felt the same anger as when his apprentice Luo Chen complained to him. In a feverish mood, when he saw Lily's bad attitude and heard her impatient tone, he wished he could summon his magic sword and strike her to death with one strike. Lu Yishan had a cold face, snorted, flicked his cuffs, and a crystal jade medal flew out, and galloped towards Lily. They are all ownerless caves? You can choose one by yourself. Elder Le is such a hero and a good man. I never thought that I would give birth to such a rebellious and disrespectful daughter like you. While I am talking, Junior, how can I? There is no room for you to interrupt. For the sake of your former parents, I will not teach you a lesson today. It's just that you are wild and untamable. I will not tolerate you in this section. If you have a good place to go, just take care of it. Searching. In anger, he blurted out the words that he wanted to drive Lily out of his family. Chen Wantang and Luo Chen looked at each other. Her eyes were filled with joy, and the atmosphere in the hall became extremely tense for a moment. Chen Wantang stuck out her tongue and lowered her head again. He leaned close to Luo Chen and stared at Lily. Seeing her unlucky look, she wrinkled her nose from time to time. When the jade token was smashed out by Lu Yishan, he shot it towards Lily with his nascent soul-level cultivation. This time, Lu Yishan shot with anger and wanted to teach Lily a lesson, so he used 7 or 8 points of his strength. If a monk at the Golden Core stage managed to get the jade pendant, he would probably suffer a big loss, but Lily easily reached out and caught it. When Lu Yishan saw this scene, he was stunned for a moment. When something was not quite right, Lily laughed. What the sect master said is the best thing. I was embarrassed to say some things at first, but now that the sect master mentioned my parents, I feel relieved. Anyway, my cultivation was not taught by the sect master. Although I have a teacher, he has the title of disciple, but does not have the reality of master and disciple. Now it is inappropriate to be named disciple. After Lily said this, Lu Yishan's face suddenly turned red, a fierce light flashed in his eyes, and he was wearing a green robe. Wu Feng spun up automatically, but Lily seemed not to notice. All the elders in the sect are here today. My parents were also monks in the early stage of Yuanying in the section. They died fighting for the sect 98 years ago. They have been practicing for many years. I am afraid they should have left behind some medicinal pills and magic weapons. When the things come down, I have never seen any of these things in these years. The 2 of them died, not to mention the things on them, but there should always be a few of their things in the section. Now that I have grown up, I don't know where I can get these things. As soon as Lily finished speaking, Lu Yishan's breath suddenly became stagnant, and his expression suddenly became ugly. Today he summoned the elders from various peaks who were not in retreat to go to the main hall. He originally wanted to drive Lily out of his lap. Lily angered his disciple that day. He didn't care about this registered disciple at first, but since Lu Yishan naturally hated Bai He for hurting his apprentice, whom he regarded as his own son. He wanted to drive Bai He out of his family, but although Bai He's qualifications were low, his status was special. Even if the teacher had a reason to drive him away, it would inevitably be unfair and unfair. Therefore, he came up with the idea of expelling Lily from his house with a just and fair reason in front of the elders, but he did not expect that Lily would be kicked out at this moment. Bearing the humiliation of being kicked out of the school, Lu Yishan not only did not plead, but brought up the relics of her parents, and it was in front of the elders. Lu Yishan suddenly frowned. The sect master won't say no, right? My parents are also great monks at the nascent soul stage after all. They have practiced for many years, and there will always be elixirs, magic weapons, and some good things left behind. I am their only daughter. These things were originally supposed to come to me. Inherit. When Lily entered the mission and received the plot, she was confused because of Li Yangzi's incident that day, but she quickly remembered it after she calmed down. After all, Elder Le and the original owner's mother were also nascent soul monks. If you can get to this point, you must have some good things in your hands, but the strange thing is that in the sect and the plot, Le Beihi's memory does not have these things at all. The original owner did not even think about it. Lily felt something was wrong at the time, but she has been holding back and not saying anything. Before her strength increased, Jianzhong had openly ignored her things. She had no ability and would not come back, so she could only suffer the loss of being dumb. Therefore, she has worked hard to practice over the years, and now that her strength has been raised to the same level as Lu Yishan, she finally asked for these things that should have belonged to the original owner. That fool Le Beihi had her resources taken away by the master she respected. She never even mentioned it from then on. She was still stupidly grateful that her master took her back when she was in trouble. The sect gave her the title of a registered disciple, but she never thought that her master would accept her as a registered disciple and then ignore her for decades. Obviously, he was not as benevolent as she imagined. A good person, such a person has no profit and cannot afford to start early. Why would he accept Lily as his disciple? Maybe Lu Yishan even accepted her as his disciple, maybe it was premeditated. The reason why the benefactor in the original owner's heart that she owes a word of thanks and apology to, senior brother, has made such rapid progress in cultivation may be that he has taken some of her things. Otherwise, a second-class disciple of a small sect, even if he is very talented, but he has neither advanced skills nor enough panacea, so how can he smoothly rise to the golden elixir stage? When Lily thought of all this, the sneer at the corner of Lily's mouth deepened a little, and Lu Yishan gritted his teeth tightly. Lily's aggressive attitude at this time made him feel a little unhappy, and at the same time, he felt a little troublesome in his heart. If Lily mentioned this matter in private, he would naturally deny it outright, or find a way to fool her. After all, in Lu Yishan's eyes, Lily was never 100 years old, and her worldliness was different from his, but now in front of all the elders, Beihi brought up the ownership of the relics left by Elder Le in the past, which made him somewhat embarrassed. The then master of Tianxiang Hall and Elder Le were two great monks at the nascent soul stage. They had been practicing for hundreds of years, so they naturally had a lot of good things in their hands. Some of the things Lu Yishan was greedy for, even the ones left by the then master of Tianxiang Hall. Among the elixirs, there was a top-quality Tianling elixir. This item was extremely precious. Lu Yishan originally planned to keep it for himself as a way out. He planned to use this elixir to attack the middle stage of nascent soul. If it failed, this item with the elixir can add another 100 years to his lifespan, and this extra lifespan is the key and confidence for him to take advantage of these years to train his beloved disciple to the nascent soul stage. Such a good thing, there is no one in the nascent soul stage who is not greedy. Eli Behi's mother did not know when she got this thing, and kept it for many years without swallowing it. In the end, once the two of them died, it was cheaper for him. These good things, after swallowing it in your mouth, how can you be willing to take it out again? At this time, Lily was controlling what he wanted in front of everyone. This not only made Lu Yishan feel that his authority had been challenged, but also made him have some murderous intentions towards Lily in order to keep those things. Bold, he suddenly shouted. Lu Yishan, who was still sitting in the hall when Lily came in, stood up in anger, and the air pressure in the hall suddenly dropped. A terrifying power of the nascent soul stage spread to all directions in the palace, and the expressions of the elders around who were lowering their heads and pretending to drink tea suddenly changed. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 857. Although these people in the sword sect are called elders, most of them are just peak elders, and their cultivation levels are almost all in the middle to late stages of the golden core. At this moment, Lu Yishan was so angry that he used the skills of his nascent soul stage monks. Once the pressure was released, many people groaned and began to use their strength to resist. Luo Chen had a look of horror on his face. Chen Wantang, whose cultivation level was too low, groaned and opened her mouth to spit out a mouthful of blood. Her small face was wrinkled, but she shouted under this power. He didn't make a sound, he just begged and stared at Lu Yishan with some fright. Humph! Lu Yishan released all his pressure. Seeing the frightened look in the eyes of everyone in the hall, he slowly regained his momentum. Although Lily's expression did not change, he only thought that she was after just holding on and giving Lily a blow. Lu Yishan restrained all his momentum and shouted sternly, "Evil! You are so disrespectful. After all, I was once your master, although now because of your qualifications, because of your stupidity, I will temporarily drive you out of my family. But once you are a teacher, you will always be a father. You are so ungrateful, and now you have defiled my things. I have never thought about the relics left by your parents. I want it from you." After he said this, he paused and looked around the hall, and finally fell on Lily. "As the leader of a sect, what kind of things don't you have? Would you covet the things of a junior like you? The reason why I was in charge of you before was just because you were young and had a low level of cultivation. You couldn't keep things if you took them away, so I put them aside for the time being. In my hands, you don't know what's good or bad, and now you have ignored me and started to persecute me." After Lu Yishan said this, the remaining anger in his heart has not completely disappeared. "If you really need it, you could come to me directly to take it back. I am not rare for these things, but now you think that I want your things, so I will not teach you a lesson today. I am the master of the sword section. Is my face going to be trampled on the ground by a junior like you? Of course everyone knows whether the sect master really wants it. Now that the sect master has said that he is willing to return it to me, it is of course the best." Lily's hand that originally fell on the spirit beast bag moved with Lu Yishan's power. He took it back under pressure. Her hand also moved away. Lily wanted to see what kind of tricks Lu Yishan was going to play. She didn't believe that Lu Yishan was willing to spit out the things he ate in his mouth, and the original owner's parents were nascent soul stage monks, so the things that could be left behind must be very big. Okay, it can be seen from Lu Yishan's resistance at this moment that he refused to give it to her. Lily sneered, and the people around him didn't say anything. Lu Yishan's eyes flashed coldly. "If you want it, come to me directly. Even if I give it to you, it won't be a big deal. But now you slander me in public, regardless of the fact that I accepted you as my disciple in the first place, and now you are accused of giving it to me if you say you want something. What do you think of me, the master of the sword sect? After all, Lu Yishan said that he wanted to return the things to their original owners, but he refused to take them out no matter what. Lily raised her brows, with a hint of impatience in her eyes, and her voice was full of excitement. A little colder. Then what do you want? It's okay to give you something, but how to give it to me must follow my rules, Lu Yishan snorted after hearing her question. If you want to get something, just do it based on your ability. In front of everyone. If Lu Yishan didn't admit that Li Beihi's parents had left something behind that day, not to mention Lily's disbelief, I'm afraid everyone here wouldn't believe it. In the past, everyone had guesses about this matter. But no one dared to say it in person, what everyone was thinking behind the scenes. Lu Yishan could also guess it, but due to his status as the sect leader, no one dared to say it even if there were people who were secretly greedy for these things. But now that Lily has made this matter clear, Lu Yishan can no longer unable to shirk it, he became angry with embarrassment. After thinking about it, he was unwilling to hand the things back to Lily, so he came up with such a method. Get it based on your ability, the original owner's own things, but now Lu Yishan wants him to get it based on his ability. If the person standing in the hall at this time is Li Beihi himself and not Lily, without any strength, I'm afraid this thing is just like in the plot. It will not be mentioned at this time, let alone what skills are used to get it. However, in the past 100 years, Lily has not only improved her strength to the early stage of nascent soul, to the point where there is a group of purple king bees around him. Although Lu Yishan will not hand over these things honestly, but if he can slap him in the face and vent this bad breath on behalf of the original owner, he will get what should belong to him. Even if it's just a point to get back the original owner's things, it's enough. When Lu Yishan heard Lily's question, he said without thinking. 2 years later, there will be a battle between the good and evil factions. 3 months ago, Master Nguyen and Old Demon Wei discovered that there were abnormal fluctuations in spiritual power in the sea area, and calculated that there was an extraterritorial palace ruins. Master Nguyen has calculated this ruins will be opened in 3 months. To open this ruins, a large number of top-grade spiritual stones will be required. Each of the good and evil factions will send half, and 100 disciples will be sent in at the same time. After Lu Yishan said this, Luo Chen's face was filled with emotion. Showing a bit of surprise and anxiety, he subconsciously said, "Master." Lu Yishan glared at him and signaled him to calm down, then sneered. "There are relics left by monks in ancient times in the ruins. If you can get them, in addition to handing over a certain share to the sect, the rest can be yours. It is also good to give a certain amount to the disciples in each camp before the war comes. The strength of this. Naturally, I don't need to say more about the benefits of this. However, except for the demon cultivators, only 50 people from each sect are allowed to enter the ruins. The heads of each sect are not allowed to participate according to regulations. Others are not restricted. For identity, these 50 places need to be fought for. If you have the ability, you can participate in this quota competition. If you win, it will naturally prove that you are qualified to get the magic pills and other kinds of magic pills left by your parents. Materials. If you lose, these things will be given to you. With your qualifications and talent, you can't keep them, so why not just donate them to the sect?" Speaking of this, Lu Yishan paused, and a cold look flashed in his eyes, "But I want to remind you that if you don't have that ability, you should practice seriously and do not care whether you live or die in the competition. In competitions between sects, we won't be merciful just because you are a member of the same sect. Swords have no eyes, and cultivating immortals is inherently contrary to nature. You should think carefully before telling me whether you are willing to participate." Lily had heard what Luo Chen said about the sect competition before. In the past 6 months, She had rushed back to the sect, but she had never heard about the ruins of an extraterritorial palace in the Xinglan Sea. When Lu Yishan arrived here, he behaved shamelessly and obviously wanted to break up with her. If she were the original owner now, I'm afraid there is really nothing she can do against Lu Yishan. It was obvious that Lu Yishan wanted to get rid of her during the competition. When he mentioned that he did not care about life or death during the competition, the murderous intent that flashed in his eyes only stayed. For a moment, but still felt by Lily, Lu Yishan used aggressive methods to force Lily to participate in the competition. If she was not strong enough, she would naturally die in the competition. Her parents' inheritances were all dead, so naturally she was no longer needed. If she loses, Lu Yishan will be a scoundrel. She does not have the strength to keep the things left by her parents. Naturally, these things are not suitable to be handed over to her. If she is not strong enough, it will be a real dilemma. Lu Yishan also obviously has some problems. She thought about the idea of reneging on the dead, but at this moment Lily's strength had reached the nascent soul stage. No matter what competition, she asked herself that it would not be difficult to enter the list of 50 decent people. After all, if she herself was not strong enough, she would. There is also a swarm of bees. Lu Yishan didn't know this. Whatever idea he had, I'm afraid it will come to nothing now. Fortunately, he had reserved a hand before and did not show his true strength. Otherwise, if Lu Yishan really knew that his strength had reached the nascent soul stage, he might have thought of other ways and would not have made such a suggestion. Lily laughed. She was looking forward to the big competition. She didn't know what Lu Yishan wanted to do. She would take a step back now. If she enters the 50 places in 3 months, Lu Yishan your expression will definitely be very beautiful. At Lily's level, to be honest, the things left by the original owner's parents are not of much use to her. The Tao Te Ching she practices is not the same as the immortal cultivation method at this time, but is purely focused on cultivating herself. Unlike most of the practitioners in this world use magic weapons, spiritual beasts, puppets, and other external objects to win. The reason why they fight for the things left by the original owner's parents is mostly just to vent their anger, not to mention that this is just a task for Lily. The world, no matter how precious or outrageous the things in it were, she was not moved by it. Lu Yishan had something in his hand that he would not let go of. If it were not for the sake of fighting for the original owner, she would not want it. In that case, I agree, Lily agreed immediately. When other people in the palace heard this, their expressions were a little strange. Some people found it unbelievable, while others were sarcastic and contemptuous. Luo Chen sneered. One voice, arrogant and arrogant, underestimating one's own abilities. Because he has advanced to the golden core stage, he is also one of the people in the competition this time. Lu Yishan has high expectations for him, and Luo Chen is also very confident that he can break into the 50, but now when he saw that Lily, who was only in the foundation building stage, was competing with him for this status, Luo Chen couldn't help but hum. I simply don't know the heights of the sky and the earth, and I don't know whether to live or die. You don't have the final say whether you want to live or die, Lily laughed, and with just a little force, she crushed the jade token that Lu Yishan had just thrown at her into pieces, and the broken foam fell from her palm, flying in the wind and scattering all over the place. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 858. This kind of behavior was even more unbearable for Lu Yishan than when he went to ask Lu Yishan to question the cave. He was already furious and murderous intent was rolling in his chest. When he was about to speak, Lily turned his gaze to the person who had just spit out a mouthful. Blood. At this time, Ruro was leaning on Luo Chen and Chen Wantang was resting with her eyes closed. Since the sect master has said that in the world of immortality, strength speaks for itself. Now I feel that my original cave is very good and I don't want to change places. The sect master prepared multiple sets of cave abodes before, leaving them to the sect master's beloved disciples. Choose again. Li Behi, don't skip the toast and eat the fine wine. I have already said that you are of low strength. Lu Yishan was so angry that his fists were clenched. Lily interrupted him impatiently. Low in strength? No matter how low you are, as long as you are higher than this junior sister. After she finished speaking, Luo Chen, who had always believed that he had been angry with Lily for decades, felt as if he had finally had the chance to take revenge. He was overjoyed. When he heard Lily's words, he stood up. The big bullies the small. In that case, I want that cave. I'm here to take it back to the cave for Xiao Haitang. Do you dare to fight me? While speaking, Luo Chen unleashed the strength of his early golden elixir cultivation, and a crystal longsword in his hand slowly flew out of his body, and the hall was filled with sword aura. Lu Yishan sneered and lowered his eyelids, as if he didn't hear what Luo Chen said. He moved his fingers and put his hands in his cuffs, pretending that it didn't matter anymore. Obviously he wasn't going to do anything anymore. Pipeline fight. Lu Yishan already hated Lily in his heart. If his beloved disciple could teach this ignorant junior a lesson in person, it would help him get rid of the bad breath in his chest. Of course he was happy to stand by and watch. After all, although he wanted to take action, if he really took action, he would inevitably be accused of bullying the younger one. But if the apprentice fought Lily, then if the apprentice beats her, her reputation within the sect will rise to a higher level, and she will be able to severely injure Lily, causing her to suffer some losses and some injuries. During the competition 3 months later, if they find a way to kill her, no one will mention the materials that the Le family and his wife left behind. Get out! Luo Chen's eyes were filled with confidence, holding a long sword in his hand. This long sword was a magic weapon specially prepared for him by Lu Yishan after he entered the golden elixir. He had already warmed it in his body for several years, and was cultivated with 1,000-year cold crystals. It matches his own ice spiritual roots very well. Since he had this magic weapon, he has become more powerful. His cultivation in the early stage of the golden elixir can be used to show the strength of the middle stage of the golden elixir. He was humiliated by Lily that day, and he really wanted to. He said this in front of his fellow clan members. So now, in order to make Lily lose face in front of everyone later, he exposed all the treasures that he was reluctant to show off. Luo Chen didn't expect that Lily's last response to him was just to tell him to get lost. He was furious in his heart. He squeezed the magic formula in his hand. With the spiritual power in his body soaring, he rubbed his hands together, and the crystal light blue longsword in his hand instantly disappeared. After turning into 36 palm-length small swords and arranging them into a sword formation, he shouted quickly, "Go!" The small swords were arranged in formation and flew towards Lily. Sword energy was flying around in the hall. The elders sitting next to the chairs had expressions of surprise and shock on their faces. They obviously did not expect that Luo Chen's attack would be so powerful. This magical power is a sword formation that Luo Chen has practiced for many years. Once the sword energy is released, it can cut through the body's protective spiritual power. As long as the enemy is trapped in the sword array, the monk can be killed in an instant. Even the soul will be injured by the sword energy, and it is impossible for the soul to be reborn. Luo Chen was very confident about the power of his move. Naturally, he saw the shock in the eyes of the elders. There was a complacent look on his face, and he was about to shout, "Cut!" Before she could finish the word, Lily suddenly opened her hands, and the latent spiritual power in her body began to increase rapidly. Luo Chen originally saw that she was so open-minded, not escaping, avoiding or dodging. When a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth, his eyes widened in the next moment. He saw Lily spread her hands, as if holding her array of small sword arrays in her arms, and easily closed her hands toward the middle. Those arrays, under the pressure of this huge spiritual power, the small sword that came forward began to merge involuntarily toward the center. At this moment, Luo Chen felt as if his heart was being beaten hard, and he was so uncomfortable that he could hardly breathe. He felt a chill in his heart. Before he could recall his magic weapon, Lily had already put her palms together, just like the monks at Laiyan Temple clasped their palms together, and the 36 small swords were suddenly suppressed by her. In the palm of his hand, he began to cry endlessly. The magic weapon made a buzzing sound, and the magic weapon that was connected to his heart and blood was forcibly suppressed by Lily with magic power. The blow to Luo Chen was not only uncomfortable, it was as if someone had taken advantage of the weak point of his life gate. The palm was like a palm, and the magic weapon struggled desperately, but couldn't fly out. Despite Luo Chen's summons, cold sweat broke out on his forehead, but the magic weapon was firmly pressed in Lily's palm, and the light gradually dimmed. With this little effort, do you dare to ask me about fighting for the cave? Do you dare to call yourself senior brother? Junior brother, I haven't seen you for decades, why are you still such a waste? What the sword sect trained is a useless thing like you. Shame on you. After Lily said this, she exerted force with her palms, and suddenly there was a clear sound from the small sword. The originally cold sword energy in the palace quickly dissipated, and the originally light blue small sword was severely damaged. The luster of her body suddenly dimmed. Under this stimulation, the little sword could no longer maintain its previous shape, and suddenly returned to its previous shape of about a foot long. When Lily opened her hand again, the little sword bounced in her hand. Now, I have long lost my previous aura. Luo Chen was connected to the heart of the magic weapon. Once the magic weapon was damaged, you can imagine the blow he would receive. At that moment, the pain that penetrated his bones came. He couldn't bear it anymore and spat out a large mouthful of blood with a puff sound. His expression changed. He suddenly became depressed. This moment happened between lightning and flint. One moment, Lu Yishan was very proud, thinking that he, his proud disciple, would give Lily a fatal blow. Unexpectedly, the next moment, Luo Chen would even use such a high-grade magic weapon. But with just one move, he was firmly restrained by Lily. Before he could even react, he saw that his apprentice was seriously injured. Stop! When he saw Beihe reaching out to destroy this high-grade magic weapon, Lu Yishan couldn't help but feel a little distressed. He had spent a lot of effort to get this thing. Over the years, in order to keep Luo Chen warm and nourished, for this thing, the sect has consumed countless good things to replace it with materials that can be used by Luo Chen. If it is destroyed in Lily's hands, it will be very difficult to find a magic weapon suitable for Luo Chen. Lu Yishan felt a chill in his heart at this time. He really didn't expect that this former disciple of the 5 spiritual roots would actually grow up to the point in 100 years that he could injure his disciple, who had supernatural powers that could rival a mid-stage Jindan monk. At this moment, Lu Yishan felt regret and heartache, and he was even slightly afraid of Lily. He remembered that he had promised to let Lily participate in the competition, so he gave her the materials left by the Le family and his wife. This move made me regret it so much right now. I'm afraid that this little bitch hid her cultivation when she came back early, and deliberately provoked herself to say such words. It's a pity that he was a hero, but he was confused for a while, always thinking that she had only 5 spiritual roots and had limited achievements in this life, but he didn't expect that she didn't know what kind of adventure happened outside, but he was able to grow to such a point in just 100 years. Thinking of this, Lu Yishan felt a little moved about Lily's adventure. This Lily can no longer be kept. In the sect's main hall, you are not allowed to fight and kill. Seeing the way his apprentice's breath suddenly wilted, Lu Yishan gritted his teeth. The competition hasn't started yet, could it be that you are going to kill each other now? You want a cave, and I agree. Just now when Luo Chen thought he could beat him, Lu Yishan never thought of stopping him. When Lily heard Lu Yishan's words, She threw the long sword in her hand that had lost its spirituality and looked badly damaged to the ground. There was a crisp sound of clang, and the sword bounced twice on the ground, like a dying fish. There was no more movement, and then Lily clapped her hands. "It's not that," the sect master agreed, "but I want this cave." "Master." After Lily said this, Chen Wantang couldn't help hearing this and called out anxiously. Lily ignored her call and directly summoned her flying magic weapon, and poured her spiritual power into it. After seeing her off, she jumped up as soon as she patted the flying magic weapon, and fled away without looking back, leaving everyone in the hall dumbfounded looking at her back as she left. "There is also peach blossom wine in my cave, and there are many things saved." Chen Wantang's face was very ugly, and she was about to cry with worry. She had been using this cave for many years, and now it was inexplicably occupied by Lily again. Go. Just now when Luo Chen was about to vent his anger for her, Chen Wantang actually felt very relieved, but she didn't expect that the senior brother who was omnipotent in her mind would be defeated by Lily, and even his own cave would be destroyed. She snatched it away. Chen Wantang bit her lip tightly, and tears were streaming down her face. Lu Yishan saw such a scene. On one side was the young apprentice who was crying to make him happy, and on the other side was vomiting blood and injured. If not handled properly, it might be possible his beloved disciple Luo Chen was about to fall. When he thought of Lily's arrogant demeanor just now and the scene before leaving, Lu Yishan slapped his palm to the ground with hatred, and was so angry that he could not speak. Returning to the cave that originally belonged to her, Lily first forcibly removed the restrictions that could block the golden elixir stage, but did not seem to be a threat to her, and then entered the cave. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 859. Compared with many years ago, today's cave has a bit more girlish temperament than before. The inside is wider and larger, and it is surrounded by pink gauze. There is even an extra purple jade bed in the training room, and all the lilies have been collected. He got up and threw it out. When Lu Yishan settled Luo Chen at the other end and came with the crying Chen Wantang to move things, he realized that the cave that Chen Wantang had carefully decorated over the years had changed greatly. Too much bullying. When Lu Yishan saw the ruined bed and some little girl's decorations piled outside the cave, he was so angry that his chest couldn't help heaving. Chen Wantang cried and picked up the fragments on the ground. He pointed and said, "When and who gave these things?" looking sad. "It's ruined, everything is ruined." The peach blossom wine that Chen Wantang brewed 10 years ago, which was placed in the cave to be nourished by spiritual energy, was thrown out by Lily. 2 jars were broken all over the floor. The sealed wine came out. When Chen Wantang saw all this, she couldn't help but shed tears. Lu Yishan drank loudly beside her. She couldn't help but pick up the broken wine jar and smashed it towards the entrance of the cave. "I also promised senior brother, keep this wine for him to drink when he wins the competition, master." After she finished speaking, she turned to look at Lu Yishan pitifully and started crying again. "Xiaotang, don't cry." Lu Yishan looked at the scene in front of him, suppressed the anger in his heart and comforted his apprentice, and then drank at the entrance of the cave. "Since the cave has already taken it, why bother to damage these things? You are such an evil deed. You have been away from home for a few years, and yet you behave so arrogantly, without knowing any etiquette. Have you had enough preaching?" Lily entered the cave and first released her group of spirit bees. When Chen Wantang and 2 others came over, she had already heard the noise outside. The reason why she ignored him was not only that she wanted to throw Chen Wantang's things out of the cave, but also because she wanted to restore the place where she practiced to its original state, and heard that Lu Yishan was still acting like an elder outside. He felt bored for a while, and restored the cave to the appearance of where she lived decades ago, and then stepped out. "This cave originally belonged to me without my permission. If she came in privately, I could kill her. What happened to the several wine jars that were destroyed? The bottles of elixirs I left in the cave are now gone. I've lost sight of you. The etiquette of the patriarch's disciples is to steal other people's things privately and take it as their own. I haven't said anything yet, but you are talking too much, which is really annoying, although Lu Yishan knew that his disciple was interested in him at the beginning. I came to this cave and have been here several times over the years to share my family relationship with my two disciples. But he had no idea whether there were any elixirs in it. When he heard Lily mention the elixirs, he was speechless and subconsciously looked at Chen Wantang, but Chen Wantang was very angry. Isn't it amazing that my cultivation level is high? This purple jade bed was my parents' favorite at the beginning. My senior brother worked so hard to get it for me, but now the corners are all broken. How can a few bottles of elixirs be compared with peach blossom wine like me? Bye. My senior brother accompanied me to pick these peach blossoms. How can I exchange the inner meaning with common things? You. Shut up. How many bottles of elixirs? You talk so easily, as if you have so many good things. If you really don't take these bottles of elixirs seriously, why did you steal them? Lily interrupted impatiently. After listening to Chen Wantang's words, the bottle of wine was almost broken. There are as many as you want in the mortal world. It's not a rare thing. The bottles of elixirs she left in the cave were much more valuable than this thing. Why did Chen Wantang want to talk to her at this moment? Lily frowned. Take it, just take it. If you can return my bottles of elixir intact today, and these broken jars of wine, I will compensate you in the same way. Chen Wantang was at a loss for words for a while, and then she finally spoke harder. Who knew it was yours? I thought it was an ownerless thing, and your name was not written on it. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head, pursed her lips, and reached out to fiddle with the tassels on the hem of her skirt. The crystal tears rolled down in her eyes, and she looked like a little daughter, who wants yours. I've already fed the kitten. Her appearance was really endearing. When Lu Yishan heard that she had indeed taken several bottles of Lily's pills, he thought of what Lily had said and choked up a breath. He couldn't spit it out and couldn't swallow it. At this moment, even if he wanted to stand up for her, but it was really because he had no name. No matter how much his sect leader hated Lily, he still had to worry about his own status and dignity. Today, he came with his apprentice to vent his anger for her. Instead of venting his anger, he was filled with anger. Lu Yishan felt a little resentful that Chen Wantang didn't tell him when he got the elixir, but thinking of her innocent character and looking at her current appearance, he really couldn't bear to blame her, and finally he could only sigh. In this case, the two sides can even out. When Lily heard this, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. Lu Yishan's face was gloomy, and she sighed. A bunch of broken things, I just want to exchange them for my few bottles of good elixirs, but no matter what, the sect master even wants to keep my parents' things. It's no wonder that like a teacher, like a disciple, raise them each of his apprentices is worse than the last. Lu Yishan had never been so angry in his life. Even if someone criticized him behind his back, he would never dare to push him like this in person. When he heard this, he could no longer bear it. With a turn of his hand, there were 3 or 4 small crystal jade bottles in his palm. He snorted and threw the jade bottle towards Lily. He then pulled up Chen Wantang, summoned his flying magic weapon, and stepped on it. Master! Chen Wantang originally came here to vent her anger, but instead of venting her anger, Lu Yishan took her things out and her things were still piled in front of Lily Cave. At this time, Lu Yishan Shan seemed to be taking her away, and she called out anxiously. Lu Yishan was in an extremely bad mood, and his face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Lily stretched out her hand to catch the elixir bottle, and took a look inside with her mental strength. The sect master is really generous in his move. Now, the competition will be held in 3 months. With the sect master's encouragement, I will definitely be able to win and get back my parents' relics as soon as possible. Each of these jade vases contains something. The elixirs used by Yuanying stage monks to replenish their spiritual power are not the best elixirs, but the elixirs that can be taken by Yuanying stage monks are already scarce, and the requirements for alchemists will inevitably be higher. In addition, the materials are difficult to find, so the price remains high. If these 10 pills were sold in the market, they could be sold for 10,000 to 20,000 spirit stones. Lu Yishan was so angry at Lily before that he took out the elixir and threw it over in a moment of anger regardless of the consequences. Originally he just wanted to hit her to shut her up, but now he felt a slight pain after throwing out the elixir. He regretted it, and when he heard Lily's gloating words again, no matter how advanced his cultivation level was, his energy and blood could not help boiling, and he almost spit out a mouthful of old blood. Now that he had suffered such a loss and had thrown away some good things, Chen Wantang was still thinking about her rags. Lu Yishan had long forgotten that he had regarded Chen Wantang's things as rare and precious. At this time, when he thought about what he had done, he didn't come to accompany her to vent her anger, nor would Lily be so angry that she wouldn't say anything and suffer the consequences. In agitated mood, he yelled, "Shut up," and then acted as if he didn't hear what Lily said. Using the flying magic weapon, quickly escaped with Chen Wantang. As soon as the two people were angry and left, Lily sneered, closed the door of the cave again, and threw the elixir in her hand into the swarm. Her cultivation is not based on accumulation of elixirs. After reaching the nascent soul stage, the elixirs used by monks in the nascent soul stage to supplement their spiritual power have no effect on her, but they have some effect on the bees who are still in the late stage of the golden elixir. Although the purple gold bee queen among the spiritual beasts was lazy and seemed not interested in these elixirs, the other bees surrounded them. After a few elixirs were quickly divided, the bees hibernated on the stone wall again, and the cave became quiet again. In more than 2 months, Lily first adjusted her spiritual power to the best state. During these 2 months, no one came to disturb her again, but similarly, no one came to communicate with her. I'm afraid Lu Yishan thought that she was in seclusion this time and might miss the competition. When Lily came out of the cave, she was not prepared to stay again this time, so everything left in the cave was as they were taken away by her. She patted the spirit beast bag, and the leader of the purple gold king bee flapped its wings and led a swarm of bees to fly into the spirit beast bag. The sword sect seemed very deserted at this time. Except for disciples assigned to guard the Dan Palace and some treasure pavilions, most of the elders and disciples had left the sword section. Lu Yishan only said that 3 months later. There was a great competition, but there was no mention of the specific day on which the great competition would be held, nor was it mentioned where the great competition would be held. She asked the remaining disciples within the section when she asked these people, but they were all speechless in reply. Lily sat on the flying boat and pondered for a moment. She suddenly remembered that nearly 100 years ago, Zhong Yan, the monk from Laiyan Temple who gave her purple bees and whom she had met several times, had given her several seals. He once said that if he wanted to contact him, he would naturally sense the spiritual stone of his spiritual power by crushing these jade tablets. Now that 100 years have passed, Lily does not know what the boy gave him that day. I don't know if it still has any effect, and I don't know if what he said at that time is still true. The cold-looking young man helped her a lot at that time. In the subsequent practice process, he may have been in seclusion because of the seclusion, and the two of them gradually there is no contact anymore, especially in the past 30 years, she left Jianzong and broke off contact with Zhong Yan long ago. She doesn't know if he still remembers her. If he still remembers it, if the jade token he left behind is still useful, and if he can be contacted, he should be able to know where this so-called competition was held. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 860. Zonyan is the descendant of Master Nyan, and his current strength is definitely not low. Although Le Behi in the plot does not know about this sect competition and the ruins of the palace outside the territory, it may be just because of that time. The original owner's identity is too low, and his cultivation level is too low, so he is not qualified to know these things. I think Zonyan in the plot should have entered this competition. If he knew Dabi, if he still remembered him, if he asked him, I hope he would answer. Lily searched for her spiritual power in her kinkin bag, and quickly found a few jade tablets that Zonyan had placed in it at that time. She took one of them out, and after thinking about it, she put some of her spiritual power into it. Tentatively called out in his mind. Zonyan? Do you still remember me? I was saved by you 100 years ago, Le Behi, a disciple of the sword section. It has been so long, and Lily is afraid that Zonyan no longer remembers who he is, so the message when she sent it, she also reported her name. There was no answer for a long time. Lily was a little disappointed and was about to think of other ways to find the venue of the competition when the jade plaque in her hand emitted a faint fluorescence and faded away. The voice of a youthful young man rang out. In Lingua Mountain, the old place. After saying this, there was no more voice on the other end. The jade plaque in his hand was only made by Zonyan when he was in the foundation building stage when he gave it to Lily, so he soon couldn't bear these few words. A sentence of conversation turned into ashes. After casting a cleaning spell to clean her hands, Lily flew in the direction of Lingua Mountain where she met Zonyan. From a distance, Lily could already feel Zonyan's aura coming from Lingua Mountain, even before they reached the meeting place. She jumped down from the flying magic weapon and put it into her kinkin bag. She was wearing a white robe of an ordinary Laiyan temple disciple among a red berry bush. The tall and thin figure with black hair hanging down behind him like a waterfall is currently turning his body sideways and staring at the red berry bush in front of him in a daze. Half of his side face is reflected in his jet black hair, which is as white as snow. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years, Lily still recognized Zonyan at a glance. His aura was restrained, and his whole person seemed to be integrated with the aura around him. If Zonyan hadn't intentionally released his aura, Lily might not have been able to feel his presence. Now Lily's strength has reached the nascent soul stage, but it is still unclear where his cultivation has reached. In addition to Zonyan possibly using sect secrets to hide his cultivation, there is also the possibility that his strength is already in his own body. Above, so she couldn't feel it. Lily stood there for a moment. Zonyan had obviously discovered her whereabouts, but he did not turn around. He put a slender and clean hand on the red berry bush, picked a bunch and played with it in his palm. The fruit had a thin skin and was juicy. All of his hands were stained during tormenting, and the bright red juice dripped down his fingertips. It was as if his fingertips were stained with blood. Coupled with his holy monk's robe and his cold and inviolable face, it gave him a clean, cold, and somewhat cruel beauty. Looking from the side, one can clearly see Zonyan's straight nose bridge and extremely light-colored lips. The lips are slightly thin, and the hair is tied back because it reveals his full forehead. The distant mountains, his normally clear and shallow eyebrows, like light ink drawings, were exposed, and his eyelids were drooped. Thick and long eyelashes are set off by a very light eyebrow color. The eyes appear to be more serene and profound. Now that junior sister is here, why are you standing there? When he spoke, he turned his head, and a few strands of long, satin-like hair hung behind his shoulders. The movement of turning her head allowed Lily to take in all his face, and the movement of tilting his face made his jawline seem to be sharpened by a knife. A cinnabar mole on the center of his eyebrows made his expression look peaceful and holy, but there was no emotion at all in his eyes, as if they were dead, giving people a feeling of no emotion at all. For some reason, Lily suddenly felt a little familiar with his look. She suddenly remembered the scene when she saw Zonyan when she entered the mission for the first time. At that time, the original owner entered Lingwu Mountain to collect medicine and was rescued by Zhong Yan. Zhong Yan's cultivation 100 years ago had only reached the foundation building stage. At that time, when he mentioned the words "the teachings between men and women are not clear," although his expression he was serious, but his ears were still red. That was the first time Lily saw him on a mission. When she saw him again a few days later, he became calmer every time, as if his emotions became more and more complex as his cultivation level advanced and time passed. More and more missing. This made her think of Li Yangzi involuntarily. Zhong Yan looked like Li Yangzi when she saw her for the first time. At that time, she only vaguely felt like him, but now that they are older, as their strength increases, this feeling becomes more and more intense. It became more and more obvious that he resembled Li Yangzi, who was like a pool of stagnant water after his emotions were separated. Lily guessed that maybe this was the reason why she felt a little close to Zhong Yan at the beginning, otherwise she shouldn't have accepted his things. And forgot to guard against him many years later. Now when I need help from someone, he is the first person I think of. But he shouldn't be Li Yangzi. She doesn't know what happened to Li Yangzi now. She didn't know who the two people were who broke into the starry sky that day and almost killed her. But Li Yangzi showed up to save her that day. Afterwards, she entered the mission. There was no news from him again. Thinking of this, a bit of gloom flashed in Lily's eyes, and she composed herself. When Zhong Yan finished speaking and stared at her, a smile appeared on Lily's face, and she walked towards him. We haven't seen each other for many years. I'm here to congratulate my senior brother on his great achievement. Although she couldn't see through Zhong Yan's specific cultivation level at this time, Zhong Yan's cultivation level could only be above hers, not below hers. Zhong Yan looked at her for a long time and nodded. Lily walked closer and could see that his blue ink-like eyes were gradually stained with her own shadow. This man was like a pool of silent spring water, and now it seemed that there were too many men. A bit popular, he used the cleansing technique to wash away the juice from the red berries on his hands. Then he flicked his sleeves, and a green lotus platform exuding ancient aura flew out of his palm and flew into the wind. It soon became about the size of a millstone. Zhong Yan walked up step by step, sat down cross-legged, and then stretched out his hand to Lily. He happened to sit in the middle of the lotus platform, and the green lotus petals surrounded him. The surroundings were shining with green light. As soon as the lotus flower came out, you could tell that it was not an ordinary thing. There was only room for Zhong Yan on it. Sitting on it, there was no extra space on the lotus pin. Lily looked at his outstretched hand and felt troubled for a moment. If she followed and squeezed in, the lotus pin was just the same size. Once Zhong Yan sat down, there was no room for him to stand. If she squeezes hard, I'm afraid she can only hang on the edge of the lotus petals, otherwise she will have to sit on Zhong Yan. Once she flies away, the former method is not very decent, and the latter method is too close, and in the end, most importantly, sitting in the arms of a monk, Lily always felt a sense of blasphemy. Lily thought for a while, and was about to shake her head and refuse to summon her flying boat, when Zhong Yan's light eyebrows frowned. Come up, there's not enough time. His tone was not serious, but it gave people a sense of strength that could not be refused. Lily smiled bitterly. Senior brother, it seems that there is no room left on the lotus platform. I have Fiazhu here, and senior brother will lead the way. Follow behind. Before he finished speaking, Zhong Yan's originally somewhat careless gaze suddenly stared at her, which made people feel inexplicably more stressed, and he could no longer say the rest of his words. The sect protecting formation in Leiyin Temple has been opened. If I don't take you in at the same time, it will be difficult for my junior sister to enter even if her cultivation level has reached nascent soul. Zhong Yan's voice was unhurried and unhurried. The competition has already begun. Today, I have been out for an hour and a half, and it will be possible to reach me in 2 hours at most. Lingwu Mountain occupies a vast area, and it would take a long time to enter the Laiyan temple sect from the outskirts of Lingua Mountain, even by taking a flying magic weapon. In the first half of the day, if she continued to delay, it would be okay if she was delayed, but if Zonyan was delayed, it would be a little bad. What's more, Lily also vaguely knew about the so-called mountain protecting formation. Each different sect would set up a formation and outsiders were not allowed to enter. This was also to prevent other people from coming to cause trouble. If she and Zonyan were to walk alone, don't leave them alone. It is said that the level of her flying magic weapon is too low, but her level of flying magic weapon can keep up, but if she wants to enter the big formation, she still needs Zonyan to pull her in, so it is better not to be constrained by those details now. Thinking of this, Lily thanked Zonyan and stretched out her hand. Zonyan pulled her into his arms. Lily could only feel the elegant scent of sandalwood on her nose. Before she could feel embarrassed, Zonyan had already given her an order. Sit tight. As he spoke, he put his hand on Lily's waist, and the green lotus flew out like a star arrow, and in a moment it turned into green smoke and disappeared. This was Lily's first time to actually come to the territory of Laiyan Temple. When Zonyan's flying lotus entered the sky above Laiyan Temple's formation, the formation suddenly opened a passage for only one person to pass through, and just as it opened, there was a tendency to close, so Qinglian narrowly managed to get in before the formation was completely closed. The formation closed when Qinglian just entered. Compared to the sword sect, Laiyan Temple is full of aura. There are several magnificent temples on the mountainside, surrounded by purple mist. Zonyan entered Laiyan Temple and did not stop. Instead, he continued to fly towards the top of the mountain. The great competition is here. Laiyan Temple is known as the leader of the decent sects in Xinglan continent. The defense here is far stronger than other sections. The great competition involves selecting the most elite disciples from each sect to go to the ruins to hunt for treasures. Everyone is also afraid of the devil. People are despicable and sneak attacks, so the by-style address is chosen here. From a distance, this mountain stream is inconspicuous, but once you enter, it is a unique cave inside. It was now crowded with disciples wearing clothes from various sections. Zonyan himself also had a competition to be held, and time had been delayed a bit, so he just brought Lily to the competition place and left first. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 861. This time the competition is divided into 4 levels: heaven, earth, black, and yellow. Among them, the yellow level is naturally the worst. Low-level disciples who are willing to participate in the competition will first be in the yellow level. After defeating a certain opponent and winning the game in a small venue, they will be promoted to the Xian level. Lily looked around casually, and found that the yellow level competition was divided into thousands of venues, with about 30 people in each venue. Because the competition lasted for 2 days, it was not crowded at the moment. She first used her sword sect disciple Li Bei. He signed up and joined the competition. The truly powerful people above the golden core stage had already entered the competition 2 days ago. Most of them had already advanced to the prefecture level, and some had even stood out from the prefecture level. They were waiting for the heaven level competition. Lily entered the competition. Most of the disciples who came down were only at the foundation building stage. She won effortlessly and easily reached the Xian level. The rules of the competition are not complicated. If you think you are capable and do not perform well, once you lose, you will not have no chance to come back. As long as you start over again, you can still stand on the competition stage again. It is precisely because of this rule that Lily's opponents are slightly stronger at the Xian level, and some have even entered the golden core stage. But according to her current cultivation level, she can still get through the Xian level smoothly. Killing all the way to the earth level. The opponents in the earth level are stronger, and almost all of them have reached the middle stage of golden core or above. If you are a very lucky disciple in the early foundation building period, and have the help of a high-grade magic weapon, you may be able to reach the Xian level with luck, but when you reach the Earth level it doesn't work. Those who can reach this point are all people with advanced strength. In the last scene, Bei even met a monk who was half-stepped into the nascent soul stage and had completed the late stage of Jindan. It's a pity that the young man holding the judge's pen, even though the pen in his hand is not extraordinary, he has many elixirs and magic weapons, and he even summoned his own machine puppet beast in the end. Unfortunately, in the end, it was because his level was one level different from Lily's. Defeated. Once the Earth level is passed, there is the heaven level above. There are not many people entering the heaven level at this time, and several sessions are already full. Lily signed up, found a corner and sat down cross-legged to wait calmly. She began to swallow pills to restore her spiritual power. It was not until 5 days of waiting that the show she signed up for was finally opened. Almost everyone who can fight to this point is no longer a weak character. Although Lily's first 2 opponents are only half-step fake babies, they have many top-notch magic weapons. This is the advantage of having a sect and a backer. Although he successfully eliminated his opponent after 2 rounds, most of the spiritual energy in his body has been consumed. According to the rules of the competition, after entering the heaven level, if you win all 3 rounds, you can adjust your breath for half a day and then compete again. Because the competition is really a battle between great monks, the consumption of spiritual energy is much higher than in the previous stage. Once the spiritual power is lost, it may be the key to victory or defeat. Although the competition can be repeated, if it is repeated a few more times, the test of the monk's endurance, physical strength, and spiritual energy purity will be doubled, because if he wants to win, it is not easy to consume a large amount of spiritual energy and fight again in a short period of time. And this situation is one of the reasons why decent people have set such rules. Danger and opportunity coexist in foreign ruins. If you don't have excellent endurance, physical strength, and pure spiritual energy, even if you are lucky enough to enter the ruins, probably won't survive either. There are more than a few crises inside. It is more likely that there will be a sneak attack from the Devil's Elite. The most important thing is that if you are very lucky and get the treasure, you may also face covetousness from your associates. In such a situation, if you are not a truly elite disciple, you may not be able to survive. The competition was brutal at this time. This is so that we can have more opportunities to survive in the ruins in the future. After Lily's 2 rounds of competition, most of the mana in her body was empty. These opponents will only be stronger than 1, not weaker than 1. Fortunately, she still has her trump card, and the swarm of bees was not released by her, otherwise she really didn't dare to stay in this kind of competition. After the 2nd round of competition, Lily did not step down. Instead, she took time to sit cross-legged on the field and began to recover her spiritual power. Over the years, because she often practiced star training, her body's affinity for spiritual power had become extremely high. Gao, this Laiyan temple was already rich in spiritual energy. After a cup of tea, a large amount of spiritual energy was poured into her body. Although it was not replenished to less than half, it was much better than before. The trumpet sounded to start the competition, and Lily couldn't help but smile bitterly when she saw the people slowly coming onto the stage. "Senior brother, it's you." The person who came to the stage this time was Zhong Yan. As soon as he saw Zhong Yan, Lily was mentally prepared to go back and fight again. She is not Zhong Yan's opponent. Although she has a purple bee in her body, but regardless of friendship, Zhong Yan was able to get the purple bee with his existence in the foundation building stage, which is enough to prove that he can get the purple bee after the nascent soul stage now. To something more precious than a purple bee. In addition, his master is one of the 2 great cultivators in the divine transformation stage known to everyone in Xinglan continent. Zhong Yan is Niu Yin's only disciple. Niu Yin will not be stingy with him. He must have something good in his hands. Although a group of purple bees is equivalent to having a group of assistants in the late golden elixir stage plus a queen bee with perfect nascent soul strength, the purple bees in the late golden elixir stage are always one step away from the nascent soul stage, and will be suppressed to a certain extent. Even if these bees can bring trouble to Zhong Yan, if Master Nian gives him any top quality magic weapon, he will definitely lose. Instead of wasting his physical strength and the possibility of getting injured to fight Zhong Yan and waste his spiritual energy, it would be better to be wiser and fight again, so that he would not be injured and could also be a favor to Zhong Yan. He helped him many times during this mission. Although if he had to do it all over again, after entering the competition these days, many disciples with truly low cultivation levels would have no choice but to withdraw, leaving almost all elites behind. If the competition were to be fought again, it would be even worse. It was more difficult before, but Lily was still ready to open her mouth and admit defeat. But before she could speak, Zhong Yan spoke first when he saw her. "I give up." Lily didn't expect that he would admit defeat first. When he finished speaking, he turned around and walked off the stage, and everyone around him was stunned. Because this competition was about entering foreign ruins, almost all the masters of the major sects participated. Those who had hidden their strength in the past almost did not hold back in this competition. In these days, the major sects have also really. It was an eye-opener. Many people who were unknown in the past became famous all over the world in this competition, and Zhong Yan was the most outstanding one among them. He doesn't talk much, but he has never failed in all competitions. Judging from his clothes, he is obviously a disciple of Laiyan Temple. However, when someone asked people from Laiyan Temple about his identity, no one could tell. There was no reason, just from the way he was dressed but not shaved, I guessed that he should be a disciple of a certain elder. Lily also stole the show in the competition this time. Along the way, she and Zhong Yan were the disciples of the competition. They were the only two people in the competition who didn't use any magic weapons and relied solely on their own cultivation to reach this point. To be honest, many people were a little excited when they saw that these two people were facing off in this round of competition. Yes, I thought that the two people could decide the winner. After knowing that the two met in this round, many people even gathered around to watch, but they did not expect that it would be such a result. The strength of the two people should be about the same, and some people behind them have even made up their minds. If these two people consume their strength, no matter which one wins, the remaining people will lose some spiritual power, and the people behind will have more opportunities, but there is no thinking of Zhong Yan, a monk who everyone thought had a mysterious origin. He had to admit defeat as soon as he arrived. This was beyond the expectations of the onlookers. Among the onlookers, Lu Yishan, the leader of the sword sect, stared at Lily on the stage with a gloomy face, and his heart was shaking like a storm. That day, he originally wanted to use this competition to get rid of Lily's idea of taking the Le family's relics, but he didn't expect that Lily, a disciple with 5 spiritual roots and no one to guide his average talented disciple, would reach this point by his own ability. Now that she has reached the heaven level, and her ability is superior to 2 monks in the late stage of the Golden Core, maybe she is also in the late stage of the Golden Core, or even entered the nascent soul stage. Thinking of what he said in public that day, Lu Yishan felt regret and hatred in his heart, and his back felt numb. Unknowingly, he has created such an opponent. With the qualifications of the 5 spiritual roots, he can advance to the nascent soul stage in just 100 years. If she really enters the nascent soul stage, she will have more than 900 souls in the future. Years have passed to hit the next level, but he has offended her. If she intends to retaliate in the future, wouldn't she have such an enemy? Lu Yishan was unwilling to admit that he had made a mistake at this time. This talent was even higher than that of Luo Chen. The disciple who was expelled by him in public did not show her true strength until now. If something happened here, he would return to Luo Chen. After the sect, if he is short-sighted, he will definitely be ridiculed by the elders of the section even because he has offended such a young nascent soul monk backer on behalf of the sect. Everyone in the sword sect will definitely criticize him, and the prestige of his sect master will be affected by this. Affected, he had been running the sword sect for nearly 200 years, and he could not let his life's hard work go to waste. We can't let her live. If she dies, this matter will be easier to handle. If she is still alive, it will cause trouble for him, not to mention that he is not prepared to hand over the things belonging to the Le family and his wife. It's a pity that the monk named Zonyan just failed to severely injure Lily. Thinking of this, Lu Yishan's eyes showed murderous intent. Brother Lu, I didn't expect that there will be another great monk in the sword sect in 100 years. Although Brother Liu's longevity is about to end, there are people in the sword sect now. Brother Lu should be relieved with this response, right? The person who spoke was the head of the sect who was affiliated with Leian Temple with Jianzong. When he mentioned this, his face was full of jealousy. Lu Yishan was in pain and couldn't say it. When he heard the other party seemed to be sour. The sarcastic words made me feel angry and speechless. To be continued.